Ministry in your context. You know, the fun thing I'd said long ago, I have that Rudyard Kipling poem. I have 6 helping men. They taught me all that I knew. Who, what, when, where, why, how, and who. But what about ministry in your context? This is important. Somebody this week, I'm not going to say who, but somebody this week really had me thinking about making sure to address these types of issues. Fantastic. You've discovered your gifts. You are a disciple. You're a spiritual leader in your own life or wherever you're at. That's fantastic. Now you need to find the ministry to do. Right? I mean, seriously, you need to find a ministry to do, and it's really simple. You just couple all of what you have with what you're passionate about, and then you find your ministry. You devote all of your time to doing that ministry. Right? All your time.
All your time.
Is there a problem here? Now, this is aside from what Melissa said, because Melissa made a valid point where she said, you're in full-time ministry, and I've made that point many times. Wherever you're at, you're always in ministry. But if you're in a specific ministry that is at a local church or something associated with that, rather than the missionary to Noble Energy or missionary to wherever you find yourself, is there a problem here with doing full-time or devoting all of your time to that ministry?
You still have to be a disciple, which means you're devoting time to knowing God and
Right.
versus the Word and finding rest and being with Him.
Yes, very true.
And the practical aspects of life.
Practical aspects. How dare you? Like what?
The carnal aspects.
The carnal, but practical, such as?
Practical, I mean, simply, making sure you have enough money to survive, making sure you're doing...
Oh, you mean having a job.
Or whatever else there is that makes life go.
Yeah, okay. So you do need money. Absolutely. So you have a full-time job already. How are you supposed to do ministry if it's not your ministry? If you have a full-time job, and I've done it, I'm doing it now, okay? I have to show people houses. I have to do economic analysis of these houses. I need to understand the market over there so that I can help them make wise decisions. I can't say, well, I didn't get into that. I want to talk to you about Christ. So they'll say, I'm interested in that a little bit, but I really need to buy a house. And if you're not prepared today, then I'll find somebody who is. But I do have moments where I actually can, yeah.
But I thought ministry was just service.
Okay, ministry is service.
If you're showing people houses and you're doing it for the Lord, then you are doing ministry.
That is
always an opportunity. You may not share the gospel with these people, but maybe you're sharing a kind word.
Okay.
Or gentleness.
Okay.
And I mean, I don't know. Like I'm just of the mindset that if it's never just a job.
No, you're right. You're right. And when you work, you are to work as unto the Lord.
Yes.
Absolutely.
The Lord can make opportunities no matter where you're working.
Okay, there is that aspect, and I will grant you that. But I'm speaking specifically about something Christian that you would do. Like if you are a 242 group leader, and you have a group of female high schoolers that you are ministering to. I'm speaking about that particular ministry, not your full-time job.
Something outside of that.
I will make an argument, as Melissa has done, that you should not neglect your job. And maybe your job is your full-time ministry. But here's a real frustration that I have and that others have had, and others do currently have, people that I know, they're not in they have a full-time job. They have the practical things of life that they have to deal with. Or maybe they have a family with responsibilities. See, it's not just the job. Now we got to get Joey to lunch practice, whatever lunch practice is. Got to get him there. I got to get Tanya over there. She's doing the fiddle. And Barbara has dance. And when am I supposed to do anything? Oh, my spouse wants to talk. Maybe you don't have a spouse. I still have to deal with my parents. I have to. I'm the one that's responsible. I have to deal with my siblings. I'm the responsible one. When am I supposed to do this thing? To which, talking about Christian ministry, you have no free time, is what you're worried about. How am I supposed to do ministry? And here's the thing, Melissa. How am I supposed to do that thing that I'm called to do? I'm going to tell you all right now, for me, I'm good at my job. I am. And if I go back to corporate America, I was good at that too. I don't want to do that for a living. I want to do this for a living. I want to spend all my time doing this. This is where my heart is. Okay, but I also have some enjoyment in helping people with houses and all that. Yeah.
I think you have to figure out what God's created you to do and then realize that there's always a cost of discipleship. I make half the paycheck I can make as an engineer being a teacher. Is I could easily say, I am educated as an engineer, I was in radiopharmaceutical research for 4 years. Why would I be a teacher treated like crap, no pay, working 80 hours a week when I could be working a whole lot less, at least in chemical engineering in the field that I was in, a lot less stress, and making a whole lot more money. So there's a cost to discipleship and you have to be willing to let go.
Would you be happier?
No.
Exactly.
But that's what I'm saying, though. You think you have no free time, but really your free time is being used doing things that you have said these are a priority over other things.
The plant continues. The plant continues. She's made a fantastic point. Let's stew in that in a moment. Maybe you want to do full-time ministry. Okay, so maybe you don't have time to do the ministry that your heart's desire to do. Maybe you want to do full-time ministry, but God keeps closing the door. Maybe He's closing the door for now. Maybe. There's problems of timing. There's two types of timing problems. Your timing and God's timing. And your timing is a problem. God's timing is an issue, not a problem. But what about... yeah. Now you were going here anyway, with this idea at least. When your time is the problem, you should consider doing a time audit. If you've got this downloaded, there's a couple of pretty good formats here of how you could audit your time. People don't know how much time they spend on things, except for Matt. Matt Dossett does, and in here he's pulling out his time audit book, because he has to do it.
I'm telling you, I did this in college. I did not know I did not realize how much time I wasted on meaningless things.
Right.
I mean,
You got it.
I did 30-minute increments for 2 days. 2 days. Mm-hmm. And I was shocked by the amount of time I wasted during the day. I mean, I felt convicted.
Yeah. This is a great convictor here. This is a really excellent tool. You can do it in 30-minute increments, or 15-minute, or 2-minute, however many Matt's doing it in. But this, just like looking at your bank account and categorizing where your money went, lets you know how much money you waste. Doing a time audit lets you know how much time you waste, if you're wasting time. Okay, maybe you find out you're not wasting time, but typically maybe you're wasting a lot more time on leisure than you think. Or, to more of a point that Melissa was making, maybe you are spending too much time on tasks that are not as important as you think. Maybe. Maybe you need to consider changing employers or changing careers. I wrote this before. Let me preface this by saying I don't have the gift of prophecy.
No, I agree with that. I come home from my job exhausted most days, and I really want to read books I know I need to read and read the Bible, but my eyes are tired, I'm exhausted, and I don't.
Yeah.
I sit down watching TV, or just the other day I just laid down on the couch and closed my eyes, and an hour later my wife woke me up.
Yeah. Passed out. It's reality. This is when your timing is a problem. You need to figure that out. Now, it's all well and good. You have to have a job. I understand that. We all have bills to pay. Sometimes we've made stupid decisions that have put us in a position where we have to have a certain amount of money in order to pay for all the stuff. Okay? And sometimes it's you are running on the treadmill, the little mouse treadmill, and you're getting nowhere, and you need to realize that if you get off of that, you can go somewhere else and do something different. So your time wasting, whether it's on things you think are necessary but aren't, or it's on leisure, it's robbing your ability to do the ministry, the thing that you want to do, the thing you were tailor-made to do. So I would encourage you all to do a time audit and make the necessary changes. Maybe the time audit can also help you answer questions that I can't help you answer these questions if you should consider changing employers. Because it is hard to say the grass is greener. But I liked what Melissa said, because as an engineer, she could make a bunch of money. And she could walk around all high and mighty, because engineers know everything.
They think they do.
They think they do. They are very brilliant people.
Yes.
Except for David, yeah. Except for David and Melissa. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
The ones, no, they don't.
Right, exactly. So, but I can't help you make that decision, but maybe if your heart's desire is to do this thing that you were made to do, maybe doing a completely different career is the answer. Maybe.
Being a teacher, I mean, it is the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. Like, by far. But it is the most satisfying thing. I just can't imagine not being a teacher.
But it's a good.
Well, what's the price? Can you put a price tag on that, Melissa?
It's expensive.
No, I mean, your utility, your desire for it. How much is that? Like, can you put a value to it, assign a dollar value and say, it's worth this much to me to do it? It's worth $100,000 for me to do it. I'd rather do this than, well, you have, obviously with preferences, you have selected to do this, and it's worth a lot more than the money that you would get. Yeah.
Well, because there's satisfaction in doing what God's created you to do versus what you're meant
Did you hear that?
to be good at.
Yes, there's.
Like, I could have been a good engineer. I'm smart, which sounds prideful, but like, honestly, the tasks that I would have been doing were not all that complicated. You know, the degree was much harder than the job, okay? And I don't think I would have been satisfied.
Yep. Very good. Ultimately, though, you can only give the time that you truly have available. And sometimes you need to dig yourself out of a hole first. Sometimes. Sometimes there's really no hole, but you're just still digging, that you're trying to dig out of. So, but you can only give what you truly have available. But if you don't look to see what you have available, how do you know what you've really got? And if you don't take the time to do an analysis of, should I change jobs? Should I change careers? Then you're just going to keep going and going and going. Motion without real forward movement. You should start with the actual time that you have, free time, and try to give that to the ministry where your heart is at. Maybe that thing will take over, and you, like Melissa, will do this career shift. And then you'll be more satisfied. This is convicting for me. But what about when God's timing is the issue? Notice I didn't write problem. Your timing is the problem. God's timing is an issue that we have to deal with. I want you to remember what we talked about last class. Moses and Joseph. Remember their life stories? All that they had gone through, all the difficulties they went through were really a refining process to prepare them for the job that God had tailor-made them to do. Moses was 80. There's nobody here that is that old.
One person's close.
There is one person close. And he's very near where Terry's at. I'm not going to say who. It could be David. It could be Matt. It could be Terry. It could be me. But God had to take them through that, the timing. His time, Joseph's time as a slave, Joseph's time in jail, being rotted away and forgotten about, was for a purpose. It sucked for Joseph, but Joseph had the right perspective. What you intended for evil, God intended for good. Because then he was prepared to do that thing. And he excelled at it. Moses in his first around 40 years, Shelley. It was around 40 years, as Stephen says in Acts. 40 years as the prince of Egypt, heir to the throne, a general also, who led a campaign against Cush, the land of Cush, who looked upon the Israelites and thought he might be the deliverer, who killed an Egyptian, thinking, I'm doing it now, and then ran for his life.
So he had a cushy job.
That was a good one. That was really good. Oh, man. But he had to go through that, and he had to go through 40 years of realizing what a failure he was. 40 years of thinking he was a failure. No wonder when God said, hey, I'm sending you, he's like, oh, not me. I'm not the one. Send somebody else. Yeah. I mean, he really thought he had made it. And then he spent 40 years listening to sheep. And watching bushes burn because of the dewdrop and then the sunlight that causes a bush to burn because of the dryness. And then it burns up. And so when the one didn't burn up, he didn't see that coming. But here's the thing. He was in with God's timing. It wouldn't have worked if either of these guys... What if Joseph, broke his slave masters and ran right to Pharaoh? Pharaoh, I must help you. I'm a slave. I'm a Hebrew slave from the land of Canaan. And God sees him. Wait, no, I'm telling you, I'm not crazy. The timing wasn't right. So we have to deal with God's timing. We have to be faithful in the desert and trust what God is taking us through. So if your timing isn't matching, if your timing's not the problem, it might be God's timing that you're dealing with. Which when you're dealing with God's timing, it doesn't mean that there's nothing for you to do.
Yeah, Paul.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, Paul wanted to go to...
Yeah, Paul was wanting to go into, was it Bithynia? Well, into northern Asia Minor, and the Holy Spirit blocked it at that time. God's timing is not a problem. Perhaps your acceptance of God's timing is the problem. So be okay with His timing. You could do something about your timing. You can also do something about God's timing. You can accept it and then realize where He does have you and flourish there. Because it's those preparatory times that you're going through. So how do you distinguish, though, if it's your problem or God's problem? Because one could start to do the analysis and say, I can't tell if it's my problem or God's problem. One would be to do the time audit. Another would be, how is your walk? Are you plugged into God? If you're not spending time in His Word, and if you're not praying, and if you're not getting good counsel and good fellowship, if you're not being a doer of the Word, it's really going to be hard for you to hear, even if you do a time audit. So you've got to make sure that your walk is going well, and you've got to be honest with yourself. Be honest with yourself about what you really are, who you really are, and how God has really made you. And if it's your time problem, or if it's just you have to wait and try something else right now, you have to be honest. You get nothing by lying to yourself. Nothing but hurt. And of course, what do you spend your time doing? What are your habits? Do you follow godly counsel? Do you lack wisdom? If any of you lacks wisdom, James chapter 1, ask God. God is the source of all wisdom. Ask Him and He will give you wisdom, but ask as if you're really going to receive. And are you truly praying about it? Don't overlook your family. Your family might be your primary ministry. Okay? And whether you're married or single, your family might be your primary ministry. The Bible is full of commands about you. Deuteronomy 6, you teach your children when you rise in the morning, when they go down at night, as you go on the way, you're teaching the Word of God to your family. Remember Joshua 2, 6 through 10? That generation of Joshua died off, and the next generation didn't know God. They didn't know God because they weren't told by the families. The family didn't do it. Or maybe your workplace, to Melissa's point, maybe your workplace is the primary ministry. Maybe you should be planting seeds to the lost. Maybe you should be helping the found to grow in discipleship at work. Maybe. That might be it. That might be your ministry. Nothing in the world wrong with a little evangelism and discipleship. Yeah.
So when I was working in public school, I kept praying and I really longed to start a prayer group in the mornings. But I was always too afraid to ask people. And so I was like, Lord, can you get something started? Can you send someone who's bold? And so finally I felt like God was saying just to ask someone. And so I just started asking people, hey, would you be interested in getting together once a week to pray? And they all said yes.
Wow. Hey, he answered your prayer. He found someone bold.
Huh?
He found someone bold.
Well, I was trembling. But
You did it. But look at that. That's a great example. Maybe it is your workplace. You need to check your gifts and the ministry that you're in. If you were created to walk in a certain way, you need to seek it out. Or maybe you need to deal with this kind of thing. Whatever your sphere is. For the time being. But Dylan would always say this, I keep my head down and I just stay faithful to where God has put me now. You have to be faithful in the little things first before you can go to the big things. Because if you do have your heart set on some big thing, some of you are already doing big things, but if you do have your heart set on the big thing, you need to be faithful in the little things first. And we'll blossom and bloom and grow. Let's talk about the ministry sweet spot. I'm proud of that. I made that Venn diagram, by golly. I designed that thing using PowerPoint. You just do a little insert shape, insert text box.
Looks like you found your sweet spot.
I did. But the sweet spot is the place where your preferences, commitment, competency, and spiritual gifts intersect. So your spiritual gifts and your preferences, your competence, what you're good at, and your commitment, how much you're committed to it, where they intersect, is your ministry sweet spot. And so when you're thinking about ministry in your context, it's your gifting and your preferences. Your preferences are important. Okay, because there's certain ministries where there's different aspects of that ministry that you could serve in, and maybe you hate this one but love that one. Well, you really shouldn't be plugged into this one over here. You should be plugged into that aspect of it. So that's your ministry sweet spot, but you can't always live in your sweet spot. Shelley, you've mentioned many times, you've volunteered to do things you didn't necessarily want to do. That's okay. And sometimes you're not there yet, and we'll cover that. I won't even go back to that. We're going to look at that diagram more. But you're not always going to be in that sweet spot, but that's okay. You can develop wherever you're at and move towards that sweet spot, because the closer you get to that sweet spot is what you were really designed to do. But you can't change your gifting, but you can develop your gifting. You can't claim prophecy. I claim the gift of prophecy now, and I'm working really hard at it. I haven't been right yet, but I'm going to keep going. The problem with that is you're a false prophet. You can always widen your commitment circle and your competency circle. You can grow in your commitment and competency. So that sweet spot could be but you can't change your spiritual gifting.
Okay, could you say that maybe whenever Paul came to know the Lord, and then he went and spent some time in Arabia,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
so he was sharpening, the Lord was sharpening him, right?
Yes. He was in a ministry incubator. He took the necessary time. He had a really nice base to come from, though. His knowledge of Scripture was phenomenal.
He had a good teacher, too.
Yeah, he did.
I think your preferences can change over time, too.
Yeah.
Another thing that can change.
You can test. Thank you, Shelley. Did you know, Shelley, that you can test your preferences and they might change?
I did that because I had a gift of prophecy.
Oh, there we go. She's been all right. You're 1 for 1 so far. But I think it's healthy for you. If you say, well, I don't really like that. I don't really want to try it. I think you should. And then you go and try it. You're like, I like that a whole lot more than I thought I would. In fact,
Now you know that you really don't like it.
yeah, I knew I'd hate that. And I hate it even more now.
But at least you know.
Yeah, David in children's ministry with the 2-year-olds. Oh, the second graders. Sorry. It's just a 2-year commitment, David. Come on. I kept razzing him last class about getting involved.
Then he can take them when they're 4.
That's right. You should seek out various ministries. Test the waters. Test the waters. Don't be afraid to walk away. Don't be hasty to walk away either. But don't be afraid to walk away. You really think your dislike of this thing is helping that ministry grow? When you show up and you put on the fake smile and you do the half job that your heart's desiring to do, you think that's helpful? No, they need you gone. They're just too nice. They're too nice. Yeah. Well, there's one way of saying it. We want to bless you to go to this other place. Sometimes that doesn't. I've seen that happen before, and the person is extremely grateful to have gone there, but the process itself was very difficult. I'd say, specifically when JJ left. I think he went to the right place. He's at the great place, but it was a very difficult process. But that's where they belong. They don't belong in this thing that they shouldn't be doing anymore. Don't be afraid to start or help start a new ministry. Shelley's starting a baked goods sale. She's doing fortune cookies with Bible verses in it.
That's actually not a bad little idea.
Yeah.
Wow, I never knew
I think actually somebody's already done that.
Especially when you got the gift of prophecy.
Yeah. I know just the fortune cookie for you.
Dad, now that I had an entirely different ministry in mind, but now Terry.
Some churches are very limited in what they offer in terms of ministry. Some churches are really bad at the way they go about it too. Such as, oh, you want to do that? We don't have a pastor that can lead that. Sorry, we can't do that here. You don't think it's biblical? Oh, no, it's biblical. Your idea is great, but we don't have a pastor that can lead it. Sorry. Ooh, we'll hit that one again too. CBC is trying really hard to connect people with the right ministries now, which I'm very, very happy to see. Very happy to see. But your church may be doing an excellent job of it. Maybe you don't need your church to do that. Maybe your work is outside the... Maybe you want to go work with college people, Shelley. Which, you could look to the church and get some help from. Don't be afraid, though, to start something. And if somebody says, sorry, we don't do that here, we don't have a pastor that can run it, I'm sorry, we just don't have the bandwidth. Okay. Does that mean that you no longer have the desire? Oh, thank goodness, because now the desire is suddenly gone from me. No, it's there. That's like taking that. I've seen this happen. They blow that candle out, and it smolders. Unfortunately, it burns again, for certain people. Some people, it just goes out and they're like, well, forget it then, fine. God doesn't want me. And then they get mad at God. God did this to me. He didn't want me to do it. It's his fault.
Do we have to go through the church though?
That's what I just said.
Like why do we feel like we have to go through the church?
Well, the church really is the place where this should be the hub of this happening.
Okay.
It should be. That's what I'm saying. CBC is trying to be more like this. We should be following Ephesians 4. We're given these leaders to equip the saints to do the work of the ministry.
Go out. To me, that's important. And Melissa said one time, I'm just interjecting here because what she said was very apropos to what we're talking right now. I was talking about my ministry, and I was perceiving that it wasn't being embraced, the idea wasn't being embraced by my church. And she said, well, maybe it's because what you're wanting to do, you need to take church to them, that age group. They may not want to darken the doors of a church, but you can take church to them. And
Very
that,
good.
I just love that, Melissa.
That's good.
Yeah, well, one of the things to keep in mind, as far as the church knowing about it, even if the church feels like they don't have the bandwidth to help out, and you decide this is really something I want to do, the elders are responsible for the flock, and so they don't want you ministering non-biblical things.
Oh, is that, yeah.
Well, only, I think if you're representing a particular church, right?
I'd say,
You're not, it's not, you can't be, an elder cannot be responsible for someone who's not part of this church.
no, an elder's responsible for their local church. Right. So, now here's the thing. When somebody has expressed this great desire and passion and interest, and they are not then checked out, because you can check somebody out to see how is their doctrine, because that is the duty of an elder. If you read Titus, it is to protect the flock from unsound doctrine from the outside, and also to teach sound doctrine on the inside and make sure that unsound doctrine is not being taught amongst the flock.
Does that really happen in the church?
Well, here's the thing. This is what I'm saying. A church should take somebody whose passion and their gifting and their talents and look at them and say, look, we don't have a pastor that can run that, but why don't you and I meet? And I want to get to know you better and understand what's going on there. And then once you've checked that person out, then you say, okay, here's what we can do to help you.
Churches who do that?
Yeah, there should be churches. Every church should do that.
That's right. That's biblical. That's it.
Can I share again what has happened?
No, I'm sorry, you can't.
Oh,
Now go ahead. Sing it this time.
I prophesied that I'm going to say it anyway.
Okay.
You know, since the whole you should go out, I totally pitched that to my pastor, who then, I thought he was shrugging me off. He said, well, go talk to the associate pastor. Well, now, we're on May 19th, we're starting. We're starting not only, they have no young adult ministry, and so we're going to start that and do my conversations ministry during the week as well.
There you go.
They have embraced it. But at first I was discouraged, thinking, okay, what I want to do maybe to, like Terry, maybe outside what they would condone or approve or whatever. And so I felt like maybe I needed to just take it out. But anyway, it's turned out lovely so far. They're like, yes, we're totally embracing it. So I'm
Fantastic.
really excited about that.
And that's the way it should be. That's the process that it should be. Some of the ways I've seen it.
They're checking me out, like you were saying.
Yeah.
They have to make sure that I'm not a kook.
Yeah, exactly. The kook test. But with your ministry and your context, don't hide behind your timing problem. Look, I like the Astros too. I don't have cable anymore. I can't watch the Astros anymore. But you don't have to see every game and say, well, I would have time, but I'm not going to miss or I'm binge watching all these different shows. I don't have time for ministry because of my binge watching. Or the game's going to be on. Or I can't be a part of that ministry because they meet on the night of the game. I keep saying game because I've seen a lot of people do that. It's their timing problems. Don't hide behind your timing problems. You'll be so much happier if you're plugged into doing something eternal. of eternal significance. And then be comfortable. So don't die behind your timing problems on the one side and be comfortable with God's timing issues. So what are your barriers to ministry? This is something for you to think about. You can feel free to spend some time thinking about what are your barriers to ministry? Are you in a ministry? Maybe you're in a ministry. You should evaluate your fit with respect to how fit you are with respect to your gifts and your preferences, your competence and commitment. You should evaluate, make sure. Because if you're noticing, you're like, yeah, I'm a part of that ministry, I think I'm gifted for it. I know I'm gifted for it. I can do it. I don't like going that much. Why don't I like going? What's your problem? Maybe you're not going to that because there's some other aspect of that ministry you need to transition to. Maybe the problem is you're the problem and you need to just suck it up and go do it and you'll be happier. Or it could just be a signal that you need to move on. Again, you need to be honest with yourself. That's honest to the third power. Are you thinking of joining a ministry? You need to evaluate how fit you are with respect to your gifts, preferences, competence, and commitment before you go into it. See how well it fits into that ministerial sweet spot.